Welcome to Taking Action. I'm Chris Colombo, and today's show is going to be more than exhilarating. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to teach you the business of bookmaking, how it works, the strategies for the up-and-coming NFL season. I'm very excited about that. We have the most famous criminal defense attorney, hailed as the greatest mob lawyer of all time. Don't worry, Murray Richman, and we'll be back in a minute with this exciting show for you. Welcome back to Taking Action. Once again, I am Chris Colombo, and we have a very, very exciting show. I'm excited. One of my dear friends, don't worry, Murray Richman, has in my opinion, a very big announcement to make that it's going to make an impact on the legal world. We'll be back to that in a minute. Today's show is going to be very good. We read the comments. I read the comments you give. I really don't watch the show, but I read your comments. One gentleman said that the Carson scenario wasn't true. I assure you that everything I said happened, maybe a little bit off because of the age of time, but my information came from Ed McMahon and producers at NBC. I do not knock Johnny. I'm a big fan of his. Drinking can get you in trouble. It's got me in trouble. And sometimes it's not the person you really are, but that story is pretty accurate. There's one more facet to that story, because what prompted me to announce it is a guy that does things on Carson or whatever called me up and said he got the information for Carson's lawyer. The inaccuracies in his story, he said it happened at Jilly's. It was not Jilly's. It was at Patsy's, not Jilly's. Also, the other part of that story, they had down that for helping Carson, my father wanted to have him pay for an elite school his grandson went to. My father had no grandchildren at the time, and part of his battle with the FBI, they were harassing my oldest brother's wife, who was pregnant to his first grandson at the time, so he wasn't born. And the story is, the truth is, it was Berkeley Institute, and I was there for 3 years. Mrs. Townsend, who I liked, was my first grade teacher, but it was a majority a WASP school, and they tried to force me out because of my name, and they were prejudiced against Italians, and there was only a couple, and I was the first one in there. And they wanted NBC to cover the story, not pay for my schooling. And there's a funny story behind it. I would do anything to get out of that school. Every time I excelled in sports or academics, I ended up having fights, and I wasn't very well liked there. They didn't like Italians, and not only that, to go to Berkeley Institute when everybody's going to PS, whatever, I used to have arguments, whatever. Especially I started out at Little Flower, Montessori, the most advanced schooling in Prospect Park there was in the Montessori system with the Indians from India. So my education was pretty significant. My father insisted on the best schools, and he insisted on good behavior. He had good philosophies on that. So I think people are smart enough to get the facts and make their own decisions. I hail you for saying that. But it was that Carson had to leave New York. And after my father's shooting, it wasn't such a bad move. Because my father liked Carson. He loved Ed McMahon. Ed McMahon was a regular at the house. They became great friends. He was an activist for the Italian American Civil Rights League that crossed barriers into helping all civil rights and all people. And he emceed two of the greatest shows ever put on that was done, first by my father and second by the league. Both hosted by McMahon, one led by Frank Sinatra, and then he retired, and then Paul Anka. Paul Anka recently wrote My Way and sang it for the first time there and dedicated it to my father in his convalescent state, which I thought was really nice of him. Keep the comments coming. I do read them, and I will satisfy and answer each one to the best of my ability. The show is about you, and it's about the younger generation, and like maybe they could sidestep some of the landmines that blew me up. Sometimes I lost more than a leg, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Also, there's another interesting story that's being asked about the offer and the Godfather of Harlem. There's a lot of things that are patently false and untrue. One thing they said that my father asked is this movie was that supposed to be Sinatra in The Godfather that Al Pacino portrayed? Yes, The Godfather was based on fiction and a lot of true stories. They did have the common courtesy to change names. once you're dead, you can't protect your name. So your legacy, good or bad, could be thrown out the window or changed. I think that's very unfair. That's one of my motivations here, is people should know the truth, or at least be presented with it and make up their own decisions, minds. Going forward, in The Godfather, yes, Al Martino was supposed to be Frank Sinatra, and Waltz from Waltz International Films was Howard Hughes. And who he was mad at is Howard Hughes used to cultivate actresses and give them stardom at a very young age, if you know what I'm saying. And he took his liberties, which guys back east and Midwest really frowned upon, because they felt that everybody is someone's daughter, someone's mother, and should be treated with respect. So Sinatra broke her from the spell of Howard Hughes, Ava Gardner. He loved her very much. She didn't run off with him, but she dated him and stopped dating Howard Hughes, and he went insane. And he was holding him back for films, and The Godfather was From Here to Eternity. I don't know if that's exactly true. If it's that movie and one that came later, I'm not sure. But he was trying to block him there, and he was blocking him in other films. And somebody went out to speak with him, and he had another young girl around. And when they saw that, and they tried to negotiate and to get Frank Sinatra into this movie and have him stop blocking his career. And a lot of people did love Sinatra. I mean, I loved him myself. He was a regular. I used to see him all the time. He was very charismatic, and he was a strong-willed individual, and he had a decent sense of humor on top of it all. But as getting back to The Godfather, they did help him, and Howard Hughes was not being very accommodating, and he had paid he had a racehorse that he paid a lot of money for. He wasn't going to race it. He wanted to put it out to stud, kind of like he considered himself. And when he refused, and he continued to hurt Sinatra and Ava Gardner, who was very good to Howard Hughes. She supported him through his troubled times. They had a vet castrated and put in his bed while he was sleeping. That is a true story. And that was over Sinatra. And this gentleman, in a position of power, using it towards seducing young women. And the gentlemen of that era were very family oriented, and as they should be, and very protective of the exploitation of women, and especially at a young age. And that's really what infuriated them when they had heard that. And I don't disagree with it, but I'm an animal lover. I'm happy they sent the vet, and that's the way I see it. So it was kind of a subliminal message. I think Howard Hughes thought he was a stud, and he was living vicariously through that horse also. So I guess the message was, if you keep acting like that, you could lose your balls too. Pardon the thing. I should have said scrotum. I apologize. We are broadcasting from my father's basement, and this is actually a pool table that Sinatra gave him as a gift. You don't see it, but we'll show it later on. And that's a story for another day. And as my mentor used to say, and that's another story. Welcome back to Taking Action. Once again, I am Chris Colombo, I think. Make sure you hit subscribe. It helps us. Doesn't cost you anything, but it lets people know you like it. It subscribes you to our channel. Even if you don't like it, it subscribes. Not teasing. I've gotten a lot of comments of how bookmaking works, how the business of taking action, being an odds maker, and I was an odds maker. I set the line. That is the most important component. That sets it to be an equal field. Like, let's say now with what's his name? Aaron Rodgers, that's the Lyme disease. Going to the Jets. The Jets may be favored by a little more because of Aaron Rodgers. Let's say they're playing the Giants. So let's say 3 is the game. It may even go to 5 because of Aaron Rodgers, 6 or 7. We got to see how he's doing, but he's going to demand an inflated line. So that line sets it even. It's a handicap. Now it's up to you. You have a 50-50 shot. So the more knowledge you get, the better shot you got to be the bookmaker. Also, it's coming out of preseason. We didn't see a lot of these teams, and we didn't see a lot of what they're going to do. So the odds are not tight. A bookmaker gets hurt, if he's going to get hurt, in the first 3 weeks of the season, and then the playoffs. Okay, we'll get into that psychology and philosophy, which is powerful, and people should understand. Okay, bookmaking is a business. inherently prior to computers, and I did it both ways. And I helped develop the software that they're using today. I couldn't patent it because it was a legal business, but the guy that did it for me did afterwards. But I liked him. He was a customer. Really didn't cost me much. He was a terrible gambler. So we worked it out. Long story short, the business of bookmaking is because it was an illegal activity, you had to know someone. You had an office. That office is set up no different like any other boiler room operation that you've seen. Boiler room means you got a bunch of guys answering the phone and they would take your bets. Now, how to get to them, you have to have a contact. Contact would bring you into the office, and I would prerequisite them myself because I would give you a limit and a limit how much per game based on what your income was. And I didn't let you go over that limit to protect you. I ran it as a business. And the business of bookmaking is to take action and enjoy yourself. And a bookmaker works off the 10%. So winning or losing was irrelevant to me the way I did it because I was taught by Meyer Lansky, who had wire rooms all over the country because if you lived in New York originally, you'd bet New York. Kansas City would bet Kansas City if they're paying. He internationalized it and worked on that's why you lay 110 to win 100 or win 100. It's 10% of that bet, but 5% of the gross is what a bookmaker should be. So the bigger the volume, the better you should do. So when you think you were there to take your money, we are not. We are there for the volume. Okay. So to get into the office, you would have to know someone who would give in a code because they would tap a bookmaker, his phones, because it's a felony. And to do that, first they'd have to exhaust every other form of investigative ways. They couldn't get in. They would watch, whatever. And then they would go before a judge. And they would put a pen register first for 30 days. And I'll tell you how I used to avoid that. And that pen register would show that on these phones that all the calls were coming in, like 2,000, 3,000 calls at the time sports events were going to take on. So that was the pen register. And then he'd go before a judge and believe that there was illegal activity and he would give you a warrant. At that warrant, that means they would come kick in the doors by surprise with a no-knock warrant. It was hectic. They come in loud, hard with guns, but everybody knew nothing was going to happen. It was all showboating. And but it's still, when guys come in and they got 10 Glocks at you and you got a pencil, we got Glocks, we got pencils. I'm going to write you a dirty note or a bad review. So at that point, that's why you use the code so it couldn't be traced back to the gambler. And so like my code was Ghost, my guys would call for Ghost. Okay. You'd call up and you say, this is for Ghost. Now, how do you get into an office? You'd have to meet me or one of my runners. What is a runner? A runner is a person that doesn't have the knowledge and the expertise and the money to run an office. So he joins up with an office, and let's say he's got 15 guys. That time, I gave more, but usually if you had 10 to 15 guys, you'd get a quarter sheet. It means I would finance it, and you would get 25% of the winnings after the losers with deduction. I would give 50% sheets to everybody, half sheets. So we were partners, but I would incur the expense of the office, paying the clerks, the people answering the phones. Now you would call up and let's say your code was 101 for Ghost. All right, this is 101 for Ghost. The guy writing would tell you the lines before, not like they do with his computer. You put a thing in and they give you the line afterwards. It's no good. We're going to go into that. This is 101 for Ghost. And we used to use the time method. Everything was 5 times. So if you made a 10-time bet, it was $25. You made a 20-time bet, it was $100. That was also a code. So because when they come in, they'd have to get to work. If it was a code, it made them more difficult to prosecute you in another way to get it lowered. But they were after the work. And when they called, that call was recorded, and there was 3 copies. We used the copies of the carbon paper. One got out and sent to me before post time, so I couldn't get past posted. 2 copies went out for the guys that did the work. My copy was held in case there was a beef. And on there, in case the line was inaccurate, the clerk could have made a mistake, and they would call up on Monday and challenge it. So you'd call up, you would make your bet, and you met multiple times during the day. We'd have to correlate all that, do the figures by the day, put it in order of the caller, and do daily reports, and then a weekly that was given up best on Monday night because everybody bet Monday night to get their figure to check it. On Monday, if you call and you'd say, I'm 101 for Ghost, I won that bet, or it pushed, or you gave me a wrong line, or I never made that bet, or I'm challenging my figure. Then we'd go back and we'd pull the work, grab 101 for Ghost, And on there was the number on the recorder, because I had them synchronized to the phones. I had a very advanced phone system. And it would say, tape 3, 198 on the meter. We'd pull it, we'd go over them with them, play it for them if they liked it. Customer service was very important. We were very respectful. We treated our customers well. That nonsense of hitting nasty, whatever, is ridiculous. It's like being in any other business. If you beat up your customers, you're not going to have them. And there's quirks in any business, and I'll teach you how to do that. So the runners were responsible for picking up and paying the money, and they were responsible to collect the money unless there was a problem that I'd have to step in and mediate, negotiate in a civil, human way. That's how the business of bookmaking works. As I got bigger, other bookmakers that had too much on a game would lay off to me if the line sufficed them. Now, the line is very important because nobody can lay off money if I put the line at 6 and it's 5, because if they win by 6 and my line is 5, the people that took it are going to win. The people who push are going to lose it. So your line is very important, especially with dealing with other bookmakers. And like you'll hear on the show, one of the biggest bookmakers in the Bronx got himself in trouble. And I took on his business while he was in trouble, and I gave him a half sheet. Actually, if it's done right, you'll earn money more with a half sheet than 100%. It's better to be a member of a winning team than a captain of a losing team. And our equipment, our customer service, our expedience, our professionalism, and just our all-around enjoy of the game and what we were doing came across and what we did things. That is the business of bookmaking. And that's how I grew so big, because my customers didn't want to go any other place, even though they call and check a line and exploit it, because there are different lines out there. We're going to talk about that later. But I built the customer base. I would throw big Christmas parties for them. This Cartier watch that I'm wearing, I gave every one of my customers one in black, and Cartier gave me as a gift in white. They didn't make that many of them. I wear it. I remember it. You know, I treated them very, very well. My customers, one year I gave, 250 guys Rolexes that were playing with me. I was very good to my client base. I didn't accept Christmas gifts, but I gave it to all of them. I took care of their medical, my employees, problems. If they were sick, they stayed on payroll, even if they didn't come out of it. Some of them, I've helped their families to date. That was the way I ran it, and most people that were smart ran it. So when they say a family business, it could be accurate, but not the family they're thinking. I would treat each and one of my customers as if they were my family. And we spent a lot of time together, and we had a lot of fun. And that is the business of bookmaking. It was treating it like a family and a corporation to protect that family. Welcome back to Taking Action. I'd like to introduce my next guest. I'd like to say introduce him, but he needs no introduction anywhere in the free world. Mr. Murray Richman, a dear friend of mine. He has been an attorney doing it as good as anybody, or better, or sets the standard as a defender of the Republic. I call him a prophet for profit. Murray, I got to tell you, when I've always needed you were there, and you never gave me a bill.
I never have. That's true.
That's the truth. So that's how I know you have an intrinsic value, and I think you got a certain degree kick out of me at times.
I love you, Chris. I really do.
I love you too,
you're a unique character and a unique individual. You have values. There's very few people that I can talk about things with you, things that we both know about and things that other people don't understand.
Murray, you said something to me the other day, and this is the reason I really wanted you on a guest. This is a tribute to you. You said you're thinking about not trying cases anymore. Is that true?
That's true. That's true. You get to a point in reality where you have to recognize your own inability to do certain things. And I love trying cases. And I always said that trying cases is more fun. The most fun you can have with your clothes on. It's absolutely a wonderful experience. Get in front of a jury, you're performing, you're doing your thing. But you get tired, and you get to a point in life where you can't do it. And I can't do it all day long anymore.
Murray, when you say don't worry, Murray, people have to understand the neighborhood. They're immigrants. There's people that are frightened by the law, frightened by situations. And you do civil law, you do corporate law, you do it all. And you do it well. trial, going to trial, and the hunt of the trial, the preparation, the performance, the outguiling of the appointment, and championing your client's cause, because I know you were on my case. You wouldn't take me as a client. You thought I was too high profile. Jeremy said the same thing. I ended up being the lowest profile client he ever had. He said, I slept through my whole trial, right?
I use that as a technique in a case, by the way.
You do? What do you call it?
The sleeping defendant routine.
Yeah. Judge kept waking me up. I says, she says, the reason you're going to sleep? I says, Your Honor. I said, they say very bad things about me. I said, just wake me up. I says, it's up to them, you and God. I know we don't agree in that area, but sometimes he was my 13th juror. Maybe you were my 14th. Murray, you have had a big defendant, and you're hailed as the lawyer to the mob. There's another word that I don't use because they just paint everybody with that thing. It's irrelevant. A 5-letter abbreviation to get the French out of our country. But cases that people don't easily trust an attorney or come to attorney forthright. What's your secret, Murray?
Well, there's no real secret. Each case is separate and individual. And you have to look at people. I'm not going to tell you that I loved every client. I'm not going to tell you every client was innocent. I'm not always going to tell you that the government in prosecuting was always wrong. It would be disingenuous for me to suggest that was a reality.
Right.
But, the government is also not always right. And the reverse is also true. The mere fact that a person is charged with a crime, we're seeing him in his worst moments, his most fearful moments. And he's coming against the government of the United States of America, the most powerful government, and not necessarily the fairest government in the world.
No. It's a stacked and rigged deck.
It's always a stacked deck, and it's getting even worse today than it was 30 years ago.
Yes. And
I'm telling you this as a matter of fact, not a matter of supposition or doubt.
Well, third-party hearsay is admissible.
Well, hearsay, I don't see, you understand, hearsay is what somebody else says somebody else said. That's hearsay. It's if you hear it directly yourself, that's not hearsay.
But here's third-party hearsay in the RICO is admissible.
Well, everything in the RICO, everything is admissible. I was on the Donovan case, the Secretary of Labor of the United States. And when he was charged in Bronx County, the only sitting cabinet officer ever charged in the history of America was charged in the Bronx in the 80s. And we got Blakely on our side because he was a government person. And in that role, we were all reversed because we were the government and the Bronx County District Attorney's Office was in the position of being the people. We even had U.S. attorneys assisting us in the defense of the United States, of the Secretary of Labor. And we got Blakely. And Blakely said when he constructed RICO, he made it as broad as possible. And he never, ever expected it to be passed as a matter of law.
Yes. It was in 1969, I believe, right?
No, it was later than that.
It passed Senate in 69. I don't know when it went on the books.
69, when it was passed, it wasn't used in any effort until the late 70s or mid 70s. And that was the first time. Rudy used that gracefully in New York.
How do you think Rudy feels that he's on the other end of a RICO, the consummate puncher's pilot?
I got to tell you, when that came out, I got a call from one of these minor newspaper, blogs. And they said, Mr. Richman, you represent a lot of mob figures. Could you tell us what your clients feel? And I said, my clients are fucking thrilled. It just popped out of my mouth. And they said, can you tell us some more of your clients? I said, no. So they looked up some, and they came up with Gribbs and Trini, who were both dead for years, even before all of this occurred, before Rudy was alive, or before Rudy became who Rudy was. And I had to laugh at the way.
Where's Rudy now? He's a defendant in a RICO.
MSNBC picked up that statement and went all over the place. Rudy's a mess. He's always been a mess. He's psychologically all screwed up on this thing. He became a hero under the worst of possible circumstances.
Yes.
He wasn't a great mayor, so we know that. I'm not anti-Rudy per se. I just don't like what he did.
I don't like what he did to Mario Cuomo. Mario probably would have ran for president But Rudy breathed it down his neck, destroyed the Democratic machine on his hope to get to the presidency or the White House.
I got to tell you,
There was some ambition there.
I tell you, Chris, I'm not a Cuomo hero fan. I don't idolize the guy.
I like them very much.
Father or the son. I think Mario was so absorbed with himself that he perceived himself as a priest more than a politician.
He was a God guy.
Yeah, was he? Yeah, and he raised a son who was so absorbed with himself that he couldn't do anything else.
Well, I'm a big fan of Mario Cuomo.
You can. You could. Hey, I'm a big fan of Mickey Mouse. But
no, I'm a big fan. Yeah, I would have liked to see an Italian American of Italian in the White House, and I think he was our strongest candidate. And my father loved him too. He said this man was the closest thing to a saint he ever met.
That's the point. That's what he wanted to be. He didn't want to be president. He wanted to be a saint. And you're right. I'll tell you something.
I hope he succeeds because we could use more saints and less presidents.
Everybody wants your emphasis, and your father emphasized the Italian American aspect of it, and it's a blessing.
Murray, I have great knockers for you. It's a Yiddish word.
Now you're losing that knockers, huh? No, I don't believe
I got great knockers for you.
The reality is, I believe everybody has the potential of being president. You want to see an Italian president? Not now. It'll come. You'll never see a Jewish president, no matter what.
Nah, you'll never see an Italian president. They've smarted us with that word so bad. People assume that every Italian is connected to some kind of crime.
It's beyond belief. I can't argue that at all. I mean, it's one of the guarantees that if you're going to be indicted, there's a more likelihood if you're Italian than otherwise.
It's the only ethnic group in the world the FBI sits and watches waiting for you to commit a crime or slip up. They don't investigate a crime. They watch for crime.
Well, the FBI, I don't understand what they're there for if what they've been doing as of late is what they're chasing people about. I don't get it. I just don't get it. They've been getting bad press, and this is what...
When did you ever see an Italian resist arrest or shoot it out with the police? It doesn't exist.
Do
you remember the first time we met?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
I'm just saying we're easy targets.
Yes, you are.
I met you. There was a bookmaker. There was a bookmaker you were defending. I met you at the Venice, and you invented filet of sole Parmesan. I'll never forget it. And he was on a state RICO and 2 bookmaking charges. I know because he was one of the biggest bookmakers, if not the biggest bookmaker in the Bronx. And I was handling his business while he was having trouble. We partnered up, and he brought his business in. So I had come to one of the meetings you would have, and then it was in the Venice on Williamsbridge Road, not too far. It was my first introduction to filet of sole Parmesan. And Italians inherently don't put cheese with fish. That was my first reaction. He says, try it. He sticks it in my mouth, and it was delicious. And I eat it regularly. I have it made. Not as good as the Venice made. They had your touch in it.
Very good.
And after that, you've assisted me on every case I've had. The big one, you helped me beat the state RICO on a Bialystock motion. When they were having those ridiculous hearings on me in organized crime headquarters, every member of my family was subpoenaed. I ran out of attorneys. You introduced me to Judge Judy's son, Adam Levy. He and his siblings, the Schindlers, all attorneys. They did a fantastic job for me. I think Adam is the district attorney now in Putnam County, right?
No, he was a district attorney. Got himself in a little trouble up there. And my daughter Stacy represented him. And the Journal News newspaper in that county said,
fine young man, good attorney. Mob
lawyer's daughter representing DA. And I flew into a tantrum on that one. I went nuts. I spent my whole life building a practice, building a reputation, and all I was a mob lawyer's daughter, a mob lawyer. And then
they paid you with that stigma also, Murray.
But the stigma connected to me, and it was ridiculous. And
we park our cars in the same garage.
Yeah, It spilled over to my family and it spilled over unnecessarily. And it was terrible. And by the way, the writer of that article was Italian. And I called him up and I said, "What the hell are you doing? I've known him for years." He said, "Well, I didn't put the headline in. That was the edit." I said, "You're dead with me. You can never call me. Don't bother ever calling me again." He says, "But," I said, "No buts. You're done." And I'm not a tough guy at all, not at all. But in that particular instance, I was furious.
I always believe the most dangerous weapon is the mind, and you have a very good one.
I do appreciate all of that.
Murray, you're one of the smartest souls and human beings I've had the pleasure to cross paths with, spend time with, and it's made me a better person for it. And you have a way of doing that.
Chris, let me tell you something. The world doesn't recognize you. You are the most interesting, amusing, and yes, amusing. You can take a simple sentence and put it in a way that makes it a inquiry into one's thinking. You make one think, which is something no American likes to do.
Ipso facto.
Huh?
Ipso facto, the thought thereafter.
I don't know here we are, the leading country in the world in power, and we're like the 26th the country in education, the 29th country in healthcare. I don't understand it because we're idiots. We are born to be raised to be accepting a lot less than we are entitled to. And I don't mean entitled in a negative sense. I mean entitled what we ourselves pay for.
Yes, entitlement. It's the worst disease there is.
Well,
yeah, disease.
When you're
let's talk a little bit about your glorious career.
Okay.
You possibly command more news in a year than a president.
No, we're close.
Close? Come on, Murray. If they don't get in trouble, you're there. You've had the piece of every major case, every major political case, rappers, entertainers. Robert DiNiro's doing your life story, you and your daughter. I mean, the people that you've touched in the neighborhood that have depended on you, it warms my heart. You've managed to do what I do, alchemy, only better. You turn lead into gold.
I like that analogy.
I describe you as an alchemist like myself.
I like that. That's a good one. But you have one thing above me that I can never catch up with. You have youth. You're still a young man, and I'm running out of life.
Murray, I wish you 1,000 more acquittals. And now that you're retiring from trying, I wish you 40 billion more negotiations.
I enjoy doing what I do, and I'm going to do it as long as I can do it. But we've had some good runs, you know. I've had some interesting cases and some funny stories along the line.
We shared a good friend that brought us even closer. Jerry, remember Jerry?
Oh,
Crazy Jerry.
Oh, Jerry Rubin. Yes.
Remember Jerry? His father was in the liquor union. Left him 800,000. He bought a satellite dish, getting all the channels, and blew it in a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta laugh. That is a guy that there's more funny stories than anybody in the world. Never a dull moment.
Interesting guy. What a life. I'll tell you a small story that you may not know about Jerry. And this is what I always tell in the cases. I always tell people never to let the FBI or any government agency into your home. Don't let them in. If they come to your door to serve a subpoena, let them serve the subpoena outside. Don't invite them into your home. They're like bed bugs. You never get rid of them after that.
You ain't got to tell me.
I'll tell you what example. And Jerry was an interest. Jerry one time had gone to the IRS where they print the money, and he bought a sheet of $1 bills, which they sell commercially.
Memorabilia.
So he had it on his wall. So the FBI came in, and they were talking to him and his wife, and one was wandering around, saw it on the wall, came back with a subpoena to search his house based upon the fact that they thought they saw the counterfeit money
on the wall,
which was nonsense.
It was just an entree.
And yes, you opened the door.
Yes.
You yourself opened the door into that. It's just an amazing thing. And people
Murray, unions ask you to travel around to their conferences and conventions to
all the
speak
time.
these things. You speak all over the world to handle law enforcement, what your rights are, what the do's and don'ts are. And it's amazing because there's very few people that are asked to do that, but you are. People don't realize what they're leading themselves into, even if they've done nothing.
Even the simple word no. You know, I've been traveling with the various unions 4, 5, 6, 8 times a year. I like the places they go to. I love going to Aruba. I love going to the islands. I love going everywhere, Florida, all interesting places. But I go there and I talk about the simple word no. And I cite a particular case, the United States versus Brogan case, which was a Bronx case, by the way.
Yes.
And Mr. Brogan, who was a former business agent for a local 32 BJ at the time, they came to Mr. Brogan and said, Mr. Brogan, who was out of the union for 7 years, mind you, was he had retired. I mean, the number 7 is important. Did you take any bribes while you were a business agent? What would you say?
What would I say? Talk to my attorney.
That's the right answer. Because Mr. Brogan said no.
Oh, you got arrested for obstruction of justice. You lied to an FBI agent.
He lied to an FBI agent.
Got more time for that than he did for taking the bribe.
He got 5 years. Had he said yes, he couldn't have been charged because the statute of limitations.
Right. How about talk to my attorney?
That's the best answer.
Right.
That's the best.
You know what the best answer is? Don't worry, Murray. You should have said.
Yeah.
Murray, people don't realize how tough it is to be a trial attorney. It takes a lot of chutzpah, determination. I practiced that on my Yiddish for you. Chutzpah, because my Italian sucks. Chutzpah, determination, a sense of fair play to overcome that for your client so he does get fair play. And it has to have a lot of self-respect, confidence, and the love of the law.
It's more than that. But not as difficult as you may think. As you probably know, less than 5% of lawyers ever go into a courtroom.
Right.
Less than 1% of those 5% ever try cases.
Right.
And as I indicated to you how I felt about trying cases, that it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Murray, what was your favorite case?
Each case is your favorite case for the moment. It lasts a while. I've won cases I shouldn't have won, and I'm constantly amazed at that. But I've tried a lot of cases. It's not 1 or 2 or 10 or 50, even 100. I mean,
thousands.
I've tried 400 jury trials.
400 juries, that's a lot.
That's impossible. At one time, I did 22 jury trials in 1 year. They gave me my own part, my own judge.
They gave me my own judge.
Well, they did. And they once gave me, I'll tell you, not just once, but 3 times. They gave me Jerry Reinstein in Bronx County, Barry Salmon in Bronx County, and Judge in New York County, Bradley, Judge William Bradley in New York County. Because I had backed up a number of cases. Everybody was hot for me that particular time. And I was trying case after case after case. And over a period of 2 years, I did almost 33 cases. And that's more than people try in their whole lives.
Pardon the pun.
But it's fun. But I tried doing the trial earlier this year. And I was picking a jury, and I got tired. And I said to myself, I can't be fair to my client if I get tired. And if I get tired, I'm only human. And by 12 o'clock, I was unable to go forward for the rest of the day. We were talking to the judge.
Murray, I'm not convinced you're human, though.
I'm only human.
I don't know, Murray. 60 years, 400 trials, servicing a neighborhood like nobody I've ever seen. The voice of reason, the voice of respect, the voice of logic. Makes sense of the unsensible. I've watched you do it. And not only that, the smile, the kibitzing you do with the court officers, you treat everybody as a human being. A love for food like I do. I mean, a day without Murray is like a day without money.
A day with Murray is generally a day without money.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, except for me.
Your
Why did
money.
you
It's
never
our
charge
problem.
me, Murray?
Never.
Never. You'd never charge. You always liked me, right?
Yeah, you're my pal. You're my pal. You
I'm going to
really
tell
are.
you something. I missed your birthday party. It took a hurricane in Fort Myers. I don't know if I should tell the story because there was water, alligators. I mean, I was hanging and blowing. I mean, I'm the only dope that ends up in Fort Myers for a Little League game. Me and my big heart. So anyway, I all I could think about was getting back to your party. So I commandeered somebody's Suburban, but I didn't get far. But I was trying, and I would have drove straight there.
It would have been. It was a. You missed a good party. I want you to know that.
No, I missed you and pledging my allegiance and friendship, which is most important to me.
Well, I'll tell you, it was an interesting array of people there. It was quite interesting. I had.
Now, worry, what group of people do you put me with? That's what I'd like to know.
That's when you. That's your choice. Never
I'm
mind.
just asking. I mean, what
I
category
don't
do you
pick you
put
with
me?
any people. You pick your own group.
No, I'm just asking. If you had to categorize me, how do you categorize me?
A unique individual. That's how I categorize you. Completely
I mean, they've
unique.
been around saying I'm a mob this, a mob that. I don't see it that way.
Well, the aura, the aura befits you, but it's only an aura. But there's no, you have a heart. Nobody knows what a sweetheart you are, and nobody knows how many people you've helped and how many things
Everybody
you've
I
done.
can.
I know
But I
that
feel bad for the ones I can't. What do we put on this earth to do?
you're a tough talking priest. That's what you are.
You know, let me tell you something. I wanted to be a priest because Vince Lombardi was my idol, and I went to Catholic grammar school, high school, and college. So I come home and I tell my mother, I said, I figured out what I'm going to do. She said, what? She said, I'm going to be a priest. She says, well, you know, you can't have women. I says, no, I think God will forgive me for that. There's been a couple of exceptions to the rule, as we know. I says, I think I can get around that. She says, all right. She says, you know, you got to say mass. You got to get up early. No problem. She says, you got to wear those outfits. I says, I'll get custom ones. Then she says, you know, people got to come to you and tell you their sins. You got to pray to God. All right. She says, well, what do you do when a guy tells you he's a pedophile or a rapist? I said, snap his neck. I says, what else am I going to do? She says, I think you should find another career. That's one's not going to last long.
It's an interesting world that you live in, and it's an interesting world that you have created. You created your own Colombo world, and it's
They
not the
like me
same
here.
world.
It's the only world that does.
Huh? I'm sorry.
They like me here.
Look, I've been through these episodes with you for years
Years.
and years, and we've talked and done some interesting things. But you're an interesting person to be with. The trouble is, you think, and you don't make thinking the goal of what you're doing. You
I'm always
think,
thinking.
yes, but you know that the vast majority of people never venture
Programmed, Murray. They don't even realize
all.
they're given gifts. They let society dictate and inhibit. I believe we all have our innate gifts and our strengths. And I also believe that right makes might, not might makes right. So on the opposite side of that, I'm a formidable opponent at any level.
But even the concept of right is subjective.
I agree, but there is a right.
I would wish I could find it even for a moment.
I find that you just can't get anybody to believe it. The recognition is easy. it's proffering and making an argument and stuff and have people listen to it.
You know, I'm a big reader. I'm a massive reader. I like
Myself also.
I enjoy the joys. And we just
I even read the toothpaste.
It was just an issue you were just talking about. And it's mindful of a book I read, the Crown of Feathers by Isaac Bashevis Singer. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1989, I believe. Yes. It's a story about a young woman who lived in Poland, a Jewish woman who lived in Poland, raised by her grandfather. And she was educated, which was not traditional. And her grandfather treated her as if she were a young man by giving her the biblical education. And it came a time that her grandfather died. And she wept and she wept, and an apparition appeared, and she perceived it to be her grandfather. And he said, "Dear, I was wrong. Everything I taught you was wrong. open up your pillow and look. You'll find a crown of feathers to show you that this is what I believe. And there was indeed a crown of feathers. And she ran her and she converted, not withdrawn. Yes, she did convert, and she married the lord of the manor because she was wealthy. And the rules of the time were her wealth became her husband's wealth after 3 years. And then he cast her out, and she wandered the plains of Poland, and she came to a woodcutter's cottage. And she had the wonderful life she had before. She had a hard, difficult life. And now it's the time to die. And she's lying on the bed, and she's sitting, and she looks up, and there's the apparition. But now she perceives the apparition was not that of her grandfather, but that of the devil. And the devil sitting on the post of the bed, stroking his chin. She said to him, "You lied to me. You lied to me." She says, "You did not tell me the truth." The devil said, "The truth? The truth? The only truth there is there is no truth." And that's how people don't understand it. Truth is subjective. It's that which you really wish it to be.
I got to disagree a little bit there, Murray.
Good. That's what the beginning of education is, the disagreement.
Yes, I got to disagree a little bit. The truth is there if you have a broad enough mind to
It's
realize.
not absolute. Never absolute. The truth is subjective to the point of view of what you want it to be.
Murray, we may have to go to jury on this one.
Well, the jury will let the people who watch this determine what the truth is.
Now, the truth are you are Murray Richman. That's the absolute truth. And it's not subjective. And I'm pretty sure I'm Chris Colombo, but after being subjective, it may be negotiable.
But you see, you're missing the point I'm making. I'm not questioning the truth of little facts. The concepts of life itself, I'm questioning.
The concept of life is perception. And your perception doesn't have to be the truth. But the closer your perception is to truth, the more intelligent you will be. Maybe not successful, because everybody has their idea of what the truth is. I've always been in search of the truth because I'm blatantly honest with my friends, my family. You remember Stewie? He wrote a letter for me, Supreme Court judge, said that I am truthful to a fault. And that is true. That is the truth. There is a fault of mine.
Yeah, Percy Bysshe Shelley wrote a poem, "Ode to a Grecian Urn," where certain pictures are frozen into perspective. And he said, "Beauty is truth, and truth beauty. That is all you know and all you need to know."
Well, Murray, I think you're a beautiful person. And that's the truth. You know, you and I have never had an unpleasant conversation in going on 32 years.
And you know why we're doing this? Because our conversations go on interminably. They can go on for
Let me ask you a question. I know you're getting tired of sitting. What do you think of legalized gambling?
I think it's destructive of our society. Everybody has been. What do you do with the guys who they put in jail for gambling? And the judges who used to give lectures, how many families are broken up because of gambling? Is it less so now because it's legal? Because the state's getting their cut. They're getting their piece of the action. And now we have marijuana.
Today is commerce tomorrow.
And know what's coming next? Heroin, cocaine. Go ahead. Go and enjoy it. As long as the state gets its piece.
It's going to destroy the country. Murray, they tied up 12 years of my life for gambling. I lost. I'd have done life.
You did 12 years?
No. Went on for 12 years. They served search warrants in 2001. They didn't come to arrest me till 2004. They made me wait. I did 5 years house arrest. Waited to go to trial for 5 years. Had my first trial that took forever. Was hung on one count, 11-1. They made me wait another 15 months and then didn't retry me. And then they sentenced me, which took forever. And then I didn't give it a day. They came home and I got a year supervised parole. I think start to finish was 15 years. Justice delayed is justice denied, and that is the truth.
Our entire society is a question of delayed justice, and you're so much right on that. And I'm going to tell you something else. The African-American community is also waiting for their piece of what should have been given to them 50, 100, 200 years ago.
Disgraceful what they did to those people. And when I mean those people are people. We're all people.
Yeah.
Even to say that is wrong, but it's disgraceful. Disgraceful.
And it'll never. It can't be righted. The question is, what happens now?
Murray, I know you're tired of sitting. Is there anything you'd like to say? Uh,
Is
I,
this all?
I know in your absence that Stacy can fill your shoes. I know you're still going to be there as a mentor, as an advisor, as a negotiator, as a plea bargainer. We've shared a lot of good times. You come to my family parties. My kids love you. I respect you.
Wait, you don't love me? You don't love me?
I'd have to love you to respect you. In my travels, I've loved many people, but respected few. So when I tell you I respect you, you're in the upper 1% of human beings.
Thank you, Chris. I love you too.
Not a compliment, a fact. I love you too, Murray. Murray Richman, doing it better than anybody's ever done it before, sets the standard as a defense and trial attorney, friend, neighborhood guy, you name it, he's done it. He's been with the toughest, he's been with the smartest, he's been with the dumbest, but he always comes out on top with his clients. Thank you, Murray.
Thank you.
Stacy, our regards.
I will.
Goodbye, Murray.
Bye-bye.
To be continued. Thank you, Murray. I'd like to say thank you to him on the years of work he's put in. Thank you for perspective on the show. I hope you enjoyed it. He's been my friend 31 years. And don't worry, Murray, not to give somebody a bill. I think that's a hell of a compliment to me. I just want to thank everybody who makes this happen. Anthony Conover. He went to school for media specialist. He worked with me in my financing company. He hated it so much he quit and told me if you want to throw him off the show, he can. We didn't do that. I'm going to take him for a feeding and a beverage. I like to thank Andy, Kevin, Robbie. Everybody here has helped greatly. Remember, hit subscribe because it'll allow us to email you the content and once the shows are coming up and you choose from there. It makes our life easier, makes your life easier, let you know what we're doing. Please hit subscribe. And also it helps Anthony correlate what he has with the info and the media area. And it also helps me with the reviews, how to answer you. I will answer by show and hopefully even by email. So that's what we're working on. And hit subscribe because later on I'd like to do it live interactive, which I think is very good. They say there's a lot of people out there that attack or whatever. We'll deal with that when the time comes. On a whole, I think you're great. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this.